The Dr. Saber Sentry 2.0. I would imagine if Dr. Saber's a real person, he probably sounds something like that. This is the Sentry 2.0 follow-up to the very popular crowd-funded, sort of community-driven Sentry 1.1, which I never had the privilege of assembling in. So this is truly a first experience for me. There's been some slight adjustments, some slight improvements here. It's still the same size. It's about the size of a console. It's notably larger than, say, an Xbox One X, but it could still fit in a medium to large size backpack, no problem. So potential case, if you are on the go constantly, maybe taking this to LAN parties, or perhaps you just have super limited desk space, especially the fact that you can orient this chassis vertically or horizontally gives you more flexibility. Now, since Sentry 2.0 is also community driven, it's not going to be available on retailers like Amazon or Newegg. You pretty much just have to crowdfund on either Kickstarter. I think they do it on Kickstarter. It could be Indiegogo, but whenever they launch their campaign, which I think should be towards the end of this month in March, if you're watching this in March, that's pretty much the only way you can get one of these. I think they were quoting around $250 US for one of these mini ITX cases. So not for the faint of heart. You really gotta love what this case can do, and really just the form factor I think is really the bread and butter here. Today I'm doing a step-by-step build inside of the case, so I'll be talking about things that I like, things that I don't like. It's gonna be a mid-range gaming PC, nothing too fancy. They're really just demo parts that we're using for the build, but it should be pretty cool once it's all done. The other thing I wanna mention is that the 2.0 model is only gonna be available in black. I believe they had a powder-coated white finish for 1.1 as an option, but to simplify things, they're only gonna be doing black for the 2.0 model. A quick mention before we dive right into building, the packaging was very nice. It came completely intact and there was no damage whatsoever. Lots of foam, lots of cushion. Makes you feel like you're unboxing a premium product, because you certainly are. The other thing is that there's no actual manual, no physical manual that comes included with the box. Instead, you have text printed on the box that tells you where to find a link to the actual manual. So I'll be referencing that today, because no matter what experience level you are as a builder, when you're building in something this limited for space, you really need to follow the right order of operations so you don't screw yourself midway through a build and end up having to, uninstall certain parts. So we'll be following that. I suggest you guys do the same if you're building in a Sentry case, or any case this small for that matter. All right, let's open the manual. I took a look through the manual just to, at a glance before I started shooting. It's a very thorough and detailed manual, which it kind of needs to be for a case like this. So thank God that it is. It's gonna make my life a whole lot easier. So step one is to disassemble the body so that we can actually get inside. You'll need a torque screw to do that, and they've included one in the package, which is nice because this case has torque screws for some reason, as did the 1.1 version from what I'm told, and I don't know why. Whatever, at least they give you this, as well as a bunch of included accessories like your riser cable, all the mounting screws, the fancy light up power button, and so forth. We'll take a look at all that later. So, okay, looks like there's 2 screws here. Now again, I never built inside the 1.1, but I did watch some reviews recently, and a lot of people were complaining that there were way too many screws just to disassemble the body. There was like 1,000 screws, and it took like 10 minutes to even get inside the chassis, which I agree is a total pain in the ass. So this is a much more elegant solution that took all of 15 seconds, if that. Hey, we're inside. All right, so I'm gonna put this aside for now. Nice premium quality. This is, yeah, like I don't even feel bad doing that. It's very solid. But we can, okay. He's already kind of loosey-goosey. We just need 1 screw here. This is like the GPU bracket area, and a yoink. One thing I noticed right off the bat, like the 1.1, no dust filters. Still no dust filtration in this case, which is gonna turn off a lot of people. I feel kind of conflicted about it. Well, I think I definitely prefer dust filters be included. I'm not gonna knock it too hard for it because it's such a small case. I feel like you could just take a data vac and just blow all the air out within a couple seconds. But again, I understand completely why this might be a deal breaker for some. Now, there are third-party dust filters that you could buy separately that worked with the 1.1 model, which should also work with 2.0 because again, the size hasn't changed, and from what I've been told, the ventilation area and sort of orientation hasn't changed much either. So those should still be compatible if you're so inclined. You know what? I'm gonna get a screw tray because this can get messy real quick. Okie dokie, artichoke. I might have mentioned that there's not a whole lot different about the 2.0 model from its predecessor, but one addition that I think is really worth noting is added support for 120mm AIO. You can water cool in this bad boy, which is really impressive considering just how small it is. I think it's like 7-liter capacity or something like that. It's just so tiny and cute. But yeah, adding water cooling support is definitely gonna be a big seller for a lot of people who are a fan of the first one. We will not be installing an AIO today because I don't have any that'll actually fit. Either the hoses are too thick, they're like the thicker tubes, tubes, which is just not gonna play nice in a case this small, or the radiator is too thick. I think the clearance it's 50 millimeters for your radiator and your fan combined. So if you're using a standard 25 millimeter thick fan, you only have about 25 millimeters of radiator thickness that you can fit in here. And even then, that's really pushing it. You're maxing out clearance. They're actually suggesting that you go no more than 47, 48 millimeters just to give that fan a little bit of clearance for intaking air and so forth. Okay, so first rule of order, they want us to install the power button. The power button is not pre-installed. You actually have to install it yourself. And it comes with this really nice black and red braided cable. It is an LED power button as well, so you'll have to plug in your power LED front panel connectors. So you pass the front panel connector side, get the power button flush with the front, slide on the included O-ring first, bring it all the way up, and then slide the screw on. And screwing her down. Power button is installed. That's a nice feeling power button. Hey, make sure to attach all required cables if you're using a modular PSU before installing it inside. No shit! No, it's a good reminder. Let's install the power supply. Of course, this only takes SFX units. No SFX-L units are allowed. That is too low. We're using a FSP Dagger 600 watt, 80 plus gold certified SFX power supply, and it's, don't buy this. At least I might have got a bad unit, but this is very loud. I've actually built with it before. Super duper loud. But again, this is just for demo purposes. So I'm gonna face the power supply fan upwards, which is where the ventilation area of the case will be, and then we gotta screw it down. So it looks like there are only 3 mounting screws for the power supply here, which for an SFX unit should be more than enough to hold it down. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, PSU installed. Now I'm gonna pop in the motherboard IO shield because we are ready to prep the Mobo. So we're gonna put the case aside for now and focus on our ASRock AB350 Gaming ITX AC Fatality branded motherboard. We also have a Ryzen 5 2600X, 6-core, 12-thread CPU. Seems like it would be a pretty nice chip for a system like this. And I'm gonna pop that in. Can you guys see that? Okay, good. Our cooler is the very low profile CryoRig C7. Low profile because we only have 47 millimeters of CPU height clearance in this chassis. Not a whole lot to work with. I need some thermal paste. Come on, little guy. Here you go. Woohoo! Wait, this isn't lining up. Hold on. I know. This is the old version of the C7, which doesn't support socket AM4. Great. If only there was a cooler just like this one within arm's reach that would let me continue this build without much hassle. Come here, you little bugger. I love this set. It's so handy. Okay, that works out nicely. I swear this isn't scripted. I just so happen to have another C7 right behind me on the set, albeit this is the full copper heatsink version, so that's cool. And since it's updated, it does support socket AM4 natively, so we can continue. We've got 2 8 gig sticks of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4 at 3000 speed. These are low profile memory modules, which is recommended for this build, and I would say almost mandatory if you're gonna be installing a liquid AIO, because with the water cooling tubes in there, the tubes are actually gonna take up the space where your cables ordinarily would. So your cables are gonna have to go over your memory modules, and if you have too tall of heat spreaders, you might not be able to fit them all. So bear that in mind. You get pre-installed standoffs, which is a plus, and I just noticed this. The case actually includes a set of Phillips head screws with the same thread and size as all the Torx screws. So you could just use only Phillips head screws for the whole build if you wanted to. The only difference being that they're silver as opposed to nice and black like the Torx screws. I guess for the inside it doesn't really matter unless you're picky about that sort of thing, which I kind of am. So I'm just gonna keep using the black Torx screws. Screw it. All right, easy now. That went in very nicely. Now it's worth noting that we're using a 2.5-inch SSD for our only drive in the system, but if you happen to be using an M.2 drive and you wanna mount that behind your motherboard, assuming that it has a slot back there, you'd wanna do that before mounting your motherboard, since this case does not have any cutout behind the motherboard tray, like the internal frame of the Fractal Design Node 202 does, for example. Now, since the back of our power supply is recessed and it's not flush with the outside of the case, we actually have to run a pass-through cable. So we've got a pass-through cable, which is included. You run it through this little hole, plug it into your power supply right off the bat, make sure the switch is on, because once the body's assembled, you won't be able to access that. And then you've also got this yellow ground wire, safety first, that needs to be bolted down to the little threaded post just below the motherboard. Once that's down, you can proceed to routing the rest of the cable through and simply mount the AC socket to the case with 2 screws. All right, so now we get to install the PCIe riser card, and it comes in 2 pieces. This guy first pops in, and then this fellow connects like so. And then we have a riser bracket we need to mount, and the sole purpose of this is to just stabilize the riser card we just installed. So 2 screws for this guy, they just get mounted at the top. Okay, we're gonna circle back to the riser card in a moment, but for now, let's go ahead and plug in our 24-pin ATX cable for the motherboard and our 8-pin EPS connector for the CPU. Now we're gonna install the USB 3 pass-through cable that comes included. You've got 2 Type A ports on one end, which mounts to the front of the case using 2 screws, and that of course terminates to a 20-pin connector that goes to your motherboard. As you can see, I used some of the room in front of the power supply to stash most of that USB 3.0 cable, because there is quite a bit of excess. I'm gonna leave our 24-pin cable a little loose for now because we still have to install our SATA cable, which is going to go to our single 2.5-inch SSD. And I'm actually going to wire up the front panel connectors that are coming off of our power button as well. Now we're ready to install our SSD, but first we have to mount the little plate that the SSD mounts to. So it comes included. It's this little guy right here, just slots in like so, and you get 1 screw to hold it in place. Then you bring over your SSD, and it kind of just mounts right over that tray, partially, but mostly on top of your riser card area. And you just screw it in. 3 screws. The manual also says that you can actually install a second 2.5-inch drive in this area if you're not installing an AIO. All right, SSD's good. Just gotta plug her in. There it is. All right, it's getting a little hairy over here, so give me a moment while I push all these cables down. You guys probably already caught it a while back, but this is a very familiar experience to the Fractal Design Node 202, mainly because the layouts are very similar. That's not a bad thing. I really like the 202. Of course, it's a little bit more compact here, not quite as much space. Now the last piece to our puzzle is the graphics card. Here we have a GTX 1070 from Gigabyte. It's one of their mini cards. It's only 6 inches long, which is not generally impressive, but works well in a case like this. We also have a fairly tall PCB, which might pose an issue. We can actually fit, I should mention, 305mm long GPUs. This is much shorter than that, so with a card this size, you could even get away with fitting a 3.5-inch mechanical drive or that 120mm radiator in the same compartment. That goes in nice and easy. Ooh, height clearance just barely makes it. It is right on the edge there. I'm actually kind of concerned about our PEG connector. Ooh, it might just barely work. So it does look like the manual is saying you get some clearance height-wise for an oversized GPU, but it's not much. You get about 18mm additional height over your standard reference PCB. So bear that in mind. This is an advertised mini GPU, and it barely fits. Not because of its length, but because of how tall it is. Final steps here with this little bracket. This goes in like so. This is what also mounts your GPU more securely. You know, the other thing I just thought of is that since you can fit a 120mm radiator here, you could probably just stick a 120mm fan in there if you wanted to. I would think that if it supports one, it'd support the other, and that would of course potentially lower your thermals even further, but we're gonna test it as is for now. Gotta finish mounting the bracket from the front side with 2 more screws. And what do you know, our interior assembly is pretty much done. Awesome possum. Final step is this guy. So you can actually see here there's sort of a raised area on the inside of this side panel that's actually supposed to go up against your graphics card. I guess it just reinforces it a little bit more, reduces wobble, vibration, that sort of thing. Am I doing this right? This goes down like that. Final screw, here we go. All right. Voila! Hey! It's like a pizza box. Special delivery. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, you can orient this one of 2 ways. Horizontally, which in that case, you'll need to add some of these adhesive feet. There's some square feet here with adhesive backing. I believe that's for if you're using an AIO. They want you to use the square feet for AIOs and the rounded feet for air cooling. Vertically, you get that super sexy stand. Where is it? Let me get the stand. So I'm gonna put this upside down for a minute. Stand goes up top here. Snap those in. Oh, look at that. I love how it's toolless. Beautiful. Yeah. I wanna boot it. Can we boot it? Yeah. Now Now we've been in Doom for about 15 to 20 minutes, actually a little bit more than that now, just to give the components a chance to get heat soaked. And right now our 2600X is overclocked, mind you, to 4 gigahertz on all 6 cores, and the hottest it's gotten in the last 20 or so minutes is 73C. It's really not bad. And I'm sure that last minute upgrade to an all copper CryoRig C7 doesn't hurt any either. Not to mention there's ample case ventilation just above the cooler, so it gets healthy intake. Our GPU, our GTX 1070, which is running bone stock right now, is hitting 77C. That's a couple degrees below 80, which isn't bad for a GTX 1070 when you're talking about a case of this size. It's really not too bad. The temps are perfectly adequate in my book, and this is just one example, one configuration that you could potentially put inside of this case. I wouldn't just go dropping a 9900K in here willy-nilly. You can get away with some pretty decent performance though. As we're seeing here, I don't have the frame rate counter up, but I'm sure we're getting well over 60 FPS, and I just completely wasted that chainsaw on that asshole. I don't care, this is just for a video. Haha! The build process is very smooth. Again, I would equate it to something like a Node 202, just in a tinier package. I'd say the quality here is a little bit higher than that case as well because it's completely metal. I don't know if I mentioned that, but there's not a piece of plastic on it. It's really solid through and through, so there's really not much room for cracking and things like that. Of course, you are gonna pay a premium. $250, if that's about where it's gonna land, is a crap ton of money, especially for a small form factor chassis. And you know, if you don't need the case to be ultra portable, then something like a Node 202 is still a fantastic option for a fraction of the price, really. But if you're just looking for the tiniest and most compact enthusiast grade case out there, there aren't many better options. I mean, there is the Dan Case A4, which is also around $200 if I remember correctly. Fantastic case also. Definitely a completely different shape and layout as this case, but still something to look into if that's the kind of niche case you're looking for. The Sentry 2.0 is a one-of-a-kind case. It's built like a tank, super smart in design, and it's definitely a looker. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would you pay $250 for this thing? Is it sexy enough? Is it unique enough for you to actually shell out that kind of cash? I don't know why I'm still playing. The video's over. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, toss a like on it before you go, and get subscribed for more tech stuff coming at you really soon. Also, what do you think of the new set? New set, yay, it looks pretty good, right? I think I like it more than the last set, surprisingly. But yeah, okay, that's all for me, guys. Thanks for watching, have a good one. I will see you all in the next video.